Hello again, party people, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I take you behind the scenes of the Chris Watts case and the making of my red carpet worldwide award-winning video, In a World of Secrets, in a World of Sound. Some people in my worldwide award-winning Your Word Is Heard comments section can't believe Chris was banging Atkinson. If the I miss your face voice message on Chris's phone was from Atkinson, then there is no question she was banging Chris. Others say only Chris and Kessinger were communicating up until his arrest. This is not true, as Kessinger cut Chris off and refused to talk to him until his family returned. And since Chris's family never returned, Kessinger hasn't spoken to, text-talked, or FaceTimed with Chris since Tuesday, August 14, 2018. Chris even said in his prison interview that Kessinger would not even reply to Chris's lawyer.
Contact me once they find your family. And then we'll talk.
That was Tuesday?
That was Tuesday.
Okay.
And he's like, I didn't hurt my family, Nikki. You're going to ruin your life. And I was like, and if you did something bad, I was like, you're going to ruin my life. And I was like, and I promise you that. And he responded back to me and he's like, I didn't hurt my family, Nikki. And that was like the last text. That was the last time we ever talked. And I never said another word to him after that.
That was Tuesday.
That was Tuesday. And then he left me alone. He gave me the space that I asked him. He respected it. And he didn't mess with me at all.
Was that a phone call where you said?
No, that's all Tuesday. Text Tuesday.
Text Tuesday.
Just call it
All
text Tuesday.
text.
Everything
Okay.
was text. I did not talk to that man on the phone at all that day. I mean, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it was all text.
Do you wish you could talk to her?
Maybe once, just to
get some closure?
just to say like, hey, just once.
Yeah.
Just to say, hey, like, I'm sorry this all happened. I'm sorry. I'm not sure like what happened like afterwards, like what you went through, like if you had like counseling, if you're like, different state, if you had to leave everything behind. I just wanted to let you know I'm sorry, and that's not something I never saw in my life happening or happening to somebody else either.
Would you be alright if we told her that?
That's fine.
Do you want us to? Do you want us not to?
And if she would want to even talk to you guys, then I'm not sure if someone contact a little bit, but I'm sure she'd answer your phone call more than an attorney phone call that she didn't want to go answer. Yeah.
Oh, so your attorney tried to call her and she wouldn't answer?
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, let's re-review Nicole and Nick Atkinson's shady behavior on that Monday and Tuesday. I've already proven that Shannon never got out of Atkinson's car at 1:48 a.m. So where did Atkinson take Shannon to? Although the doorbell video is not from Monday morning, you can see that when Nicole's car backs out of the driveway, the headlights shine on the ground in the driveway, and as she backs out, the lighting on the ground from the headlights changes as she backs out. As you can see, the headlights shine on the ground at the back of Nate's truck before you see Nicole's car pass by. So if Nicole really backed out of Shannon's driveway, you would see a change in lighting in the driveway as her car backed out and the headlights were no longer shining in the driveway. There is no change in lighting in the driveway after Nicole's car allegedly backed out, because Nicole never pulled into the driveway and she never backed out of it. What you are seeing is Nicole's car turn left off of Steeple Rock and onto Saratoga. As you can also see, there is no obstruction between where Nicole's car headlights would have been and the back of where Nate's truck was. Therefore, when Nicole allegedly backed out of Shannon's driveway, the car headlights on the ground would sweep from right to left as she backed out of the driveway. But you do not see this happen because she never backed out. When you do see the slight sweep of the headlights from right to left, this is when Nicole pulls away from the curb into the center of the roadway as she drives forward. So Shannon never got out of Nicole's car at 1:48 a.m.
So he has it time clocked of when I dropped her off and when I left, but it doesn't show Shanann getting out of my car, and she got out of my car and got her luggage and then went up to the house. And I backed up, but I sat there for a second to make sure she made it in the house and shut the door and everything was fine. I can confirm she was in that house. And
She
then,
went in through the front door.
Mhm. So, yeah, and I don't know if she flipped the lock after, I don't know, but she did go through the front door.
When was the last time that you heard from her? When I dropped her off at her house, I watched her, made sure she got in the house. That was at 2 a.m. It was actually 1:55.
This area, we had got it on camera with her coming in and out and stuff.
Possibly. I mean, it didn't pick her up going in from when you dropped her off.
But
though,
I
so
did wait. I know she made it in the house because I waited till she shut the front door.
Right. But his video just showed you
Yeah, I know.
backing out, so there's a gap there that
Yeah.
didn't pick up.
Do these neighbors have cameras?
I'm gonna walk it here in a minute.
Did she walk
I don't know.
the driveway or did she walk through the
She walked through the right here because I pulled up. Do you?
There is simply no evidence to prove Shannon got out of Nicole's car at 1:48 a.m. Then, on Monday, Nicole acts all worried about Shannon, but Atkinson's soundtrack doesn't match her movie. Nicole tells us in her police interview that Shannon was tired, had to get up in 3 hours, had a doctor's appointment that morning, and also had to take the kids to school. Clearly, with this knowledge in mind, anyone else would think Shannon was just at home sleeping upstairs, while her phone was downstairs in the kitchen or in her office. But not Atkinson. Nicole just knew something was wrong. Nick told Coonrod that he and Nicole assumed Shannon was passed out upstairs. Yet, when Nicole enters Shannon's house, Nicole doesn't go upstairs to look for Shannon. No, Nicole immediately puts her hand to her own neck and starts looking to where she probably planted the luggage against the wall before she even reaches the staircase. Then, Nicole walks past the staircase and walks to the kitchen without going upstairs to see if Shannon is there. Why would Nicole casually walk to the kitchen if she believed Shannon was passed out upstairs? When Nicole entered the house, she had no idea Chris already went upstairs, so going upstairs, or at least shouting out Shannon's name upstairs, would be the first place Nicole would go, or the first thing a person would do, since Nick said that he and Nicole believed Shannon was passed out upstairs. But Nicole already knows Shannon is not upstairs, or even in the house, so she doesn't go upstairs or even shout out Shannon's name. Here, Nicole doesn't even ask Coonrod if he found anything, because Nicole already knows that Shannon isn't in the basement. Nicole is obviously only on lookout duty here, so she just walks away when she sees Coonrod coming, while Nick and Chris do shady things upstairs.
Let me check in the house for consent. Oh.
Later on, Nicole finds Shannon's purse in plain sight on the floor beside the door, when everyone, including Coonrod, already searched the office and never saw the purse in plain sight on the floor. And what woman would put her purse on the floor? Just like the luggage, the purse was obviously planted. Now, before Chris even got home, Coonrod asked Nicole at 1:52 p.m. to call Chris and get the garage door passcode so they could enter the house and look for Shannon. Atkinson told Coonrod she would do this.
Do you mind calling him and seeing if we can get a passcode to this and get me permission to go in?
Okay.
I'm just gonna check the back, see if I can see anything.
However, Nicole called Sandy instead. Why did innocent Nicole call Sandy instead of calling Chris, like she said she would do? Then, when Coonrod returns to the front of the house, Nicole has been on the phone with Sandy for 5 minutes while Coonrod was at the back of the house. And, as soon as Coonrod appears, Nicole's conversation with Sandy changes, and only now does Nicole ask Sandy for the garage pass code. What were Sandy and her friend Nicole really talking about before Coonrod came back to the front of the house at 1:57 p.m.?
Is there a key code, Sandy, to open the garage from the outside? What is it? His mom's gonna get it.
Does this seem a little weird to you? Because it sure does to the king of the case. Then, at 1:59 p.m., Coonrod asked Nicole for Chris's phone number. Nicole is on the phone with Sandy. Nicole then waves to someone up Steeple Rock Drive. Throughout the entire time that Coonrod, Nicole, and Nick were waiting for Chris to get home, Nick and Nicole constantly look up Steeple Rock Drive, and the potential safe house was located only 6 tiny houses away at 6323 Steeple Rock. So who did Nicole signal wave to on Steeple Rock? And why are Nick and Nicole constantly looking up Steeple Rock? Again, at 1:59 p.m., Coonrod asked Nicole for Chris's phone number.
What's Chris's phone number?
They have the top lock, the one that they have on there so CC can't escape. Chris's phone number is 910-309-1702.
Okay. It was Chris, correct? Yeah. Okay. Hey, Chris, Officer Coonrod for the police department. Pretty good. So, do you have any idea where your wife is? Okay. Right. Well, my concern is her car's here. They're saying she is diabetic. I don't want her, if she's upstairs and can't respond. Okay. About how far out are you? Okay. All right. Thanks.
As you just saw, after Nicole gave Coonrod Chris's phone number, Coonrod walked back to the porch to call Chris, but Chris doesn't answer the call. Why not? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Nicole hung up her call with Sandy and called Chris at 1:59 p.m. to warn Chris that the cop was going to be calling him. So Chris was on the phone with Nicole when Coonrod first called Chris. Now why would innocent Nicole do this? Coonrod then calls Chris back, and this time Chris answers. During her police interview, Nicole even told the cop that she called Chris for 7 seconds. However, Nicole lied when she said it was at 1:52 p.m. Now why would innocent Nicole lie about the time of her call to Chris?
And then he still wasn't at the house by 1:52. I called again and was like, "Where are you?" But I had already called the police then, and they were on
What
their
time
way.
did you call the police?
12 or 1:33.
Did you call 911 or the regular line?
I called the non-emergency line because I didn't know whether they would consider that emergency or not. So I looked up the non-emergency line and called it.
Okay.
And then
So then 1:52, you said you got another phone call? Or you
I called
Chris
him again and I was like, "Where are you?" Because the police were there and they wanted to know how far out he was because we couldn't get in the house. The police couldn't even get in the house.
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, I don't want to break down the door if she's not in there." So the police officer did. So he was checking windows and stuff and trying to figure out how he could get in. And then he said, he was like 10 or 15 minutes out or whatnot. I really don't remember.
Okay.
It was a very short conversation. I can tell you how long it lasted. I was on the phone with him for 17 seconds, so if that tells you.
Sure. That's short.
Yeah.
You can clearly see on Coonrod's chest camera that he asked Nicole for Chris's phone number at 1:59 and 20 seconds p.m. And you can clearly hear Nicole is on the phone with Sandy when Coonrod asked Nicole for Chris's phone number. And you can clearly see that when the discovery was released, Nicole's lie to the cop about calling Chris at 1:52 p.m. was exposed, because Nicole hung up with Sandy as soon as Coonrod walked back to the porch to call Chris at 1:59 and 39 seconds p.m., and Nicole immediately called Chris for 7 seconds. However, as usual, only the king of the case brought this Nicole outright lie to your attention. Nicole's 7-second call to Chris went something like this. "Chris, the cop is calling you right now. Bye." Now, when Nicole was deliberately lying directly to cop Kevin's face on August 14th, Nicole was looking at her phone screen and saw the call to Chris was actually at 1:59 p.m., yet she deliberately lied to Kevin and said it was 1:52 p.m. And you can clearly see from the timestamp on Coonrod's chest camera that Coonrod's first call to Chris that Chris didn't answer was at 1:59 and 42 seconds p.m. And again, Chris did not answer the call because he was on the phone with Nicole for 7 seconds. Now, both Troy and Chad said that Chris left Survey 10:29 at noon time.
I would say between 11 and 12.
Okay.
Somewhere in that time frame window.
Quote, "Something is not right. I have to go check it out," end quote, and left UPRC 1029 at approximately noon to check his house.
However, Chris's truck GPS shows that he allegedly only left Survey 1029 at 12:57 p.m. But more interestingly is the fact that the eidetic memory Rain Man says he left Survey 1029 at 12:10 p.m.
29.
Where'd you go first?
The 319.
319. Where and what crossroads would that be?
Oh, it's out in the ranch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Survey 319. Okay.
Yeah.
How long were you at Survey 319?
Probably about an hour.
Okay. Just telling the boys what to do?
I was out there checking a line that we had leaking on Friday.
Okay. Okay, and that took about an hour?
Yep.
Then what?
Went to the 1129.
Okay. Again, is that just in the middle of a ranch?
Yeah, it's the same ranch.
Okay. Oh, so how far away?
Not far.
Walking distance?
No.
Oh.
Walk.
That's a big ranch.
Yeah, you don't drive there.
Okay. How long were you at 1129?
Probably about 20 minutes or so.
Doing what?
I was just checking, just doing an inspection over there. See if I can get the welder run again.
Okay.
This one you have to kind of run manually.
Okay. And then where?
The 1029. We were there most of the rest of the day.
Doing what?
We're trying to get a pumping unit to pump back up. And stuffing box rubbers were leaking and the rods were smoking, so we had to replace them. That's what took a very long time.
And how long were you out there?
The rest until 12:10.
So 6-7 hours.
So since Chris really left Survey 1029 at 12:10 p.m., where was Chris for the missing 47 minutes between 12:10 p.m. and 12:57 p.m.? It seems obvious that Chris used someone else's truck when he left Survey 1029, because Chris's truck GPS shows that Chris never left Survey 1029 for the ride home until 12:57 p.m. So did Chris use someone else's truck when he left 1029 for the first time at 12:10 p.m.? And did Chris use that borrowed truck to drive over to Survey 319 to dig the grave? It also appears obvious that Chris did not have enough time to dig the grave big enough for Shannon and both kids, probably because he kept on getting interrupted by calls and texts to and from Nicole at 12:18 p.m., Josh at 12:21 p.m., Nicole at 12:27 p.m., the real estate lady at 12:27 p.m., Addie at 12:31 p.m., another call with Nicole at 12:41 p.m., and text from Cassie at 12:43 p.m. Cassie even told Chris that the police were being called if he didn't get home immediately. So did Chris then drive back to Survey 1029 with a borrowed truck to pick up his own truck for the ride home, because his own truck GPS shows that he left 1029 at 12:57 p.m., and Chris admits that he originally left 1029 the first time at 12:10 p.m. Chris then drove to Black Mesa Road before driving home. But what's still odd, as the king of the case pointed out long ago, is that the truck Chris drove to Black Mesa Road at 2:01 p.m. is not the same truck that appears in Coonrod's chest camera when Chris finally arrived home 6 tiny minutes later at 2:07 p.m. The truck that Chris arrived home in clearly has side body trim, while the truck Chris drove to Black Mesa Road clearly does not have side body trim on it. The truck Chris arrived home in also has a Cox reel in the bed of the truck, while the truck seen driving to Black Mesa Road does not appear to have a Cox reel in the bed of the truck. Furthermore, the tubing seen in the back of the truck driving to Black Mesa Road is laying down, while the tubing in Chris's truck when he gets home is upright in the bed of the truck. The fact that Chris changed trucks at Black Mesa Road makes Chris's secret chat with Nick at 2:13 p.m. a lot more significant. This is so because Nick is seen on camera secretly walking toward Black Mesa Road 10 minutes later at 2:23 p.m., but there is no footage of Nick walking back to Chris's house. Why not? Well, I'll tell you why. Nick either drove the truck Chris left at Black Mesa Road and parked it somewhere else, since Chris knew his GPS would prove he went to Black Mesa Road, or he walked back to Chris's house via Steeple Rock Drive, and maybe even stopped in at the 6323 Steeple Rock Safe House to pick up Shannon's purse. There is simply no other possible explanation why the house that filmed Nick walking toward Black Mesa Road would not also have footage of Nick walking back. Now, before Cassie made Nicole call the cops at 1:33 p.m., Nicole called Chris at 1:31 p.m. to warn Chris that Cassie was making her call the cops.
I was like, okay, something's seriously wrong. So, because I've been in contact with Cassie and Christina all morning, because these are people that would normally talk to her every day. I called them, I'm like, what do I do? Chris said she's with a friend, and they were like, go back to the house and call the cops. So then I did. I drove back to the house, and I called Chris again. I said, I'm going back to, well, I texted Shanann.
See how fast Nicole caught her slip up and changed stories. No, you were right the first time, Nicole. You called Chris at 1:31 p.m. to warn him Cassie was making you call the cops. And during the call to the cop's shop, you can clearly hear another woman is with Nicole at Shannon's house. Listen carefully to the woman repeatedly talking in the background.
So, because she wasn't like, I'm like, well, huh? What's your name? I'm like, well, huh? What's your name? 91. Okay. All right, you're welcome. Thank you. 91. Okay. All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Now, I proved long ago that Nicole's Life 360 map proves Nicole arrived at Chris's house before her car arrived at 12:20 p.m. And Chris repeatedly admitted that Nicole was on his doorbell camera at 12:10 p.m. And just as important, Chris confirmed that Nicole was with someone because Chris said Shannon's friends, plural, arrived at 12:02 and 12:10 p.m. And since Nicole's car never arrived until 12:20 p.m., it proves that Nicole was not at Chris's house with Nick when she was on Chris's doorbell camera at 12:10 p.m. So the friends Chris referred to was not Nicole and Nick. It was Nicole and the other female heard talking in the background when Nicole called the cop shop. Moreover, Chris would not refer to 16-year-old Nick as one of Shannon's friends.
At about 12:10 p.m., that's when my doorbell visitor, they read another visitor, and I was like, it popped up on my phone, and it says it was Nicole. And I tried to put it on my phone to see if she's just trying to get in or whatnot. And I hear like she's on the phone trying to I could hear her all through my phone saying she was trying to get to Shanann, so that's when I called her. Yeah, I called her at 12:20.
I guess my question for you is, would it show her leaving with the kids? Did you have any alerts?
If she came out here, yes. Like, if
Did you have any alerts today with that?
just when her friends were here.
Does it only record when the doorbell rings or anytime
If
someone...
you're like right here, it should just start, the proximity should hit up.
Anything on that?
Just her friends.
And what time was that?
12:10 and about 10 minutes afternoon. Nikki, her friend that came here about 12:10, she said the garage door was shut when she got here.
Chris's phone bill proves that Chris called Nicole at 12:18 p.m., while Nicole's Life 360 map proves her own car did not arrive at Chris's house until 12:20 p.m. Since Nicole's Life 360 map proves her car only arrived at 12:20 p.m. This proves that Nick drove Nicole's car to Shannon's house with Madison in the car, because Madison was still using the child car seat, while Nicole arrived first with someone else. And that someone else was a woman, the woman heard talking in the background when Nicole calls the cop shop. So where did this woman go to, since she was no longer there when Coonrod arrived? And more importantly, why did she leave? And why hasn't Nicole ever told the truth about this? Why don't you tell us, Nicole? Now, when Coonrod arrives, Shannon isn't even missing yet, she just hasn't been heard from. But Nicole tells the cop during her interview that she didn't know how the cops were treating this before they walked into Chris's house and split up to search for Shannon. Like what? Obviously, Nicole knew this was a crime scene before they even entered the house. And the woman who was with Nicole before Coonrod arrived knew this was a crime scene too, and she wanted to be no part of the investigation, so she left, and Nicole has lied about this since day one.
So then you inside.
We're inside.
Okay. Go ahead.
And everybody kind of split. The police officer and him, like, everybody kind of split because we were looking for Cece and Bella and Shanann. Like, everybody just kind of split up because at this point, I don't know what you guys are considering this or not considering this, but
Now, I don't know what the cops considered at Nicole, but I sure considered you. And Nick, prime suspects when I read the discovery and watched all the cop cam videos. Whatever Nicole told Chris at 12:10 p.m. must have been super important, because Chris immediately left Serby 1029 at that same 12:10 p.m. time. Both Troy and Chad told the police that Chris received several phone calls before he left 1029, and since Chris admits that he left 1029 at 12:10 p.m., it proves Chris got several calls before 12:10 p.m. And the discovery proves that Sandy texted Chris at 10:28 a.m. Mountain Time. Therefore, we need to find out who called Sandy, because when Sandy texted Chris, Sandy asked if Shannon was okay. Nicole claims she only called Sandy for the first time at 1:52 p.m. This was when Coonrod asked Nicole to call Chris and get the garage pass code, and Nicole called Sandy instead. Nicole said in her interview that she never called Sandy earlier because she didn't want to upset Sandy if there was nothing to upset Sandy about. So who called Sandy? Or is Nicole lying once again?
and I was like, Sandy, do you have a code to Shannon and Chris's garage door? And she was like, she started giving me numbers, but none of them worked. And then I, of course, had to tell her what was going on, and I didn't call her before that because I didn't want to upset her if there was nothing to upset her about.
So who called Sandy? Or is Nicole lying once again? Sandy confirmed for me long ago that she only called the Primrose School twice, yet the school confirmed that they received 3 calls from Sandy that day. So since Sandy only called twice, did Nicole call the school pretending to be Sandy? Nicole also claims that she only called Chris for the first time at 12:27 p.m. However, Nick told the cops that Chris only arrived home 2.5 hours after he was first called.
So it took Chris about 2.5 hours to get there.
From the first from the first call.
Since Chris got home at 2:07 p.m., it proves that innocent Nicole first talked to Chris at 11:37 a.m. In Nicole's police interview, Nicole almost slips and says the 11 a.m. hour, but catches herself and says 12:27 p.m. So why is Nicole lying so much in this case?
Okay. What time were you at the doctor's office, do you remember?
Well, if I called Chris at 12:27,
When Coder interviewed Chris on August 14th, even Coder sure seems to wonder if Nick and Nicole could be responsible for Shannon's disappearance.
So, can we back up a tiny bit? You come home, no one had been in the house?
No.
Okay, no one could get in the house, is that right?
Yeah, unless you had a garage door.
Okay, and that's how you got in?
That's how I did it.
So at this point, you get there. Are the police there at this point?
Yes.
So you, the police, Nicole, that's it?
Her son.
Her son, what's her son's name?
I think it's Nick. I think his name's Nick.
Nick. And so you and Nicole aren't besties, per se? You and Nicole?
Oh no, like we're friends, but yeah, my wife and her are really good friends.
Okay. And so Nick, you don't spend much time with Nick?
No.
Okay. Why is Nick there?
That he was just with his mom.
Okay. Is there anything weird about Nicole and Nick?
Not that I really think of.
Do you think anything about your wife not being around has anything to do with Nicole and Nick?
I would hope not. I mean, like, Nicole is one of her good friends.
But she harasses me the next day. Like, I teased her because I'm like, you're so bossy.
Okay.
I don't think they could have done, like, I don't think they could have done anything, like, as far as, like, helping her get out and then being so emotional when they couldn't find her. I don't think they could be capable of that. I don't think so, because, I mean, Nicole is she's very close with Nicole. And the way Nicole is acting right now, as far as how emotional she is, yet, there's no way, like, she knows.
What does that mean?
There's no way, like, she would know, like, where she is if she knew.
Oh, so you're saying if Nicole knew?
Yeah, Nicole knew, like, the way she's acting right now, she's as freaked out as I am.
Okay.
Where is your
so
wife?
There's no way, like, she would know where she is if she knew.
Do you know Nicole that well?
I'm decent. I mean, she's been over at our house a good amount of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you obviously spoke with Nicole.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have any weird feelings from her.
No, she was there at the house. Like she was the one that was ringing the doorbell trying to see what was going on.
Okay.
Chris told Coder that Nicole had returned to his neighborhood that Monday afternoon.
While they were gone.
Okay.
Because they were gone at this point.
Where did Nicole go?
Back to her house.
Back to her house.
She was there when they came back to search the house.
Nicole was?
She was parked outside.
When is this, 5 o'clock?
Yeah, she was parked outside.
Okay. Did she come in and help them?
No.
Why not?
Well, because they told me to wait outside.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Chris told Coder twice that Nicole was parked outside. Chris did not say that he saw Nicole go back to Nate's house, because Chris knows Nicole never went to Nate's house. Nicole is only parked outside after she arrived, and she never got out of her car. Nicole is also parked way down the street, so there is no way Chris would see her unless he was expecting her, and unless he told Nicole what direction to arrive in, and told her where to park. And Chris was indeed expecting her, and this is why Chris was outside of his house. Chris was going to go talk to Nicole, but he couldn't, because Officers Coonrod and James unexpectedly arrived back at Chris's house at 4:10 p.m. and 4:19 p.m., which was before Nicole even arrived at 4:25 p.m.
You don't plan on going anywhere, right?
No, I was just going to walk around the neighborhood just to...
Chris also lied to Coder when Chris said the cops wouldn't allow Chris or Nicole in the house during their search. The cops told Chris he could do whatever he liked.
So Chris, it's your house. You can go inside with us if you'd like, or you could stay out here. It doesn't matter to us.
Doesn't matter. I mean, free reign, just whatever you got to do.
Okay.
Like I can show on the decks on the side of the sun. But
Okay. Cool. All right. Whatever you'd like.
I think that was weird.
All right. Were you going to hang out there, or you want to come in here? Okay.
Again, Chris told Coder that Nicole had returned, but since Chris was looking down at his phone and clearly did not see Nicole drive by when she left his neighborhood, how did Chris know that Nicole had returned if he didn't prearrange for her to come back in the first place? Nicole also claims that she didn't know that Nate had a camera.
Did it seem like Chris, did it seem like to you, or do you even have prior knowledge, either one of you at this point, that he knew that camera was there?
Yeah, he
before that day. So he was very well aware of the camera?
Yeah,
I didn't know. I had no idea the camera was there. So.
And if Nicole really didn't know Nate had a camera, well, she knew by 2:38 p.m. Monday afternoon when she was in Nate's house watching his security camera footage. And this is why when Nicole returned to secretly talk to Chris 1 hour and 47 minutes later, at 4:25 p.m., Nicole arrived from a direction that Nate's camera would not see her. Had the police not returned to Chris's house, Nicole would have left in the same direction she arrived in, so Nate's camera would not see her. But because the cops arrived, Nicole drove off at 4:33 p.m. and never got to speak to Chris, and never stopped to ask the 3 returning cops if they had any new news about Shannon, because Nicole already knew they had no new news about where Shannon was. And Nicole never called the cop shop that night for an update either. Nor did she call Chris for an update, which are total giveaways that Nicole must be directly involved in Shannon's disappearance. And just like Troy never told the cops about his secret return to Surrey 319 on Tuesday, Nicole also never told the cops about her secret return to Chris's house at 4:25 p.m. And Nicole never went to Nate's house to get Nate Frank's phone number, like Nick falsely told Val Hubbard during his interview. So have a think about it, party people. Nicole said she backed her car up to the garage so Nick could stand on it and look in the garage window to see if Shannon's car was in the garage.
So the lock was flipped, and I yelled through the door. Nobody answered me. And then I told Nicholas, my son, I was like, because the garage panels where you can see in, it was too high for me. I'm like, come look and see for cars in the garage. And he couldn't, so then I backed my car up and pulled it up closer to the garage. And
No, she probably backed her car into the driveway so no one would see her take the luggage out of her car trunk that was planted in the house with the white name tag facing in the wrong direction. It appears obvious that when Chris left for work, he deliberately left the garage door open a few feet so Nick could crawl under the door to get in the house and plant the luggage.
It says at 5:27 a.m. the overhead garage door 2 was left open and never shut. About that time. So either when I pulled away and shut the door, it never shut. It was shut when you got here. So either the sensor was tripping out, which has happened before. I've had to replace it 2 weeks ago before I left.
And the only thing that was weird was that the garage door said it was left open after I left. And it might have been the sensor, but my phone doesn't show when
for your alarm?
Yeah, it doesn't show if it shuts.
And who's your alarm through?
Vivint.
Okay.
But Nikki, her friend that came here about 12:10, she said the garage door was shut when she got here.
Since Nicole's car was backed up to the garage, no one would see them take the luggage from the trunk. Nate said his camera could not see what is happening in front of Chris's garage, so his camera would not capture them taking the luggage out of the trunk or see Nick going under the garage door to get into Chris's house.
But I can't see what he's doing in the back of the truck because he pulled into the garage. Yeah. And he knows my camera's there. Look at those.
I know. I'm trying to stop.
No, I'm just saying it's kind of odd that he pulls his truck back behind my camera.
Nick admits he did stuff at Chris's house for 40 minutes, and this probably included planting the luggage.
about 40 minutes of doing stuff around the house.
So it appears that Chris was hosting a triple murder mystery party, and when bumbling would-be criminals, Nick and Nicole, went to close the garage door when they were leaving, they accidentally set off the alarm not once, but twice. So Chris called Nicole at 12:41 p.m.
I was messing with the door. I set off the alarm system, so they called him at work.
I figured while she's in there and she's unconscious, because their alarm's gone off before when I was dog sitting, and it's a loud alarm, so I lifted up the garage door so to trigger it, and it triggered, and then was disarmed. Okay. Oh, so you lifted the garage door purposely to trigger the alarm? Yes. Okay. I lifted it up purposely because I figured if she's asleep and couldn't hear us through the door, the alarm would definitely wake her up.
So why has the DA been lying to my public for over 5 years now, when Rourke repeatedly said the house was locked up tight and no one could get into the house when the cops first arrived, when, in reality, Chris told the cops on 2 different occasions that the garage door was left open when he left for work? This fact was also verified by an independent third party, namely, Chris's security system company, Vivint.
The home, when law enforcement arrived, was locked up tight from the inside. The only way that the law enforcement could get in was getting Mr. Watts there with a garage door opener to let law enforcement in. There was no way anyone was going to get into that house as a stranger, do something to that family, and get back out and leave the house locked up in that manner. I think that was probably the most compelling thing that struck law enforcement almost immediately.
Who cares what condition the house was in when the cops first arrived? What matters is, what condition was the house in when prime suspects Nicole and Nick first arrived? Nicole and Nick were the first people to arrive at Chris's house after Chris left for work, and despite what anybody says, Chris's Vivint security system proved that the garage door was open when Nick and Nicole first arrived. And since Nicole admits that she backed her car into the driveway, this means that when Nicole left to drive to the doctor's office at 12:47 p.m., all she had to do was drive forward out of the driveway and straight up Steeple Rock Drive to get out of the neighborhood. However, Nicole turned right after pulling out of the driveway. Then she drove in front of Nate's camera because she wanted to be seen by the camera that she claimed she didn't know existed. There is no other reason for Nicole to have turned right and to drive in front of Nate's camera, since Nicole knows it's not the correct way to travel to leave the neighborhood. Just like when Chris sat in his truck and waited for Betty to leave at 5:18 a.m. so Betty would see him. And just like when Nicole claimed she backed out of Shannon's driveway in the wrong direction and drove in front of Nate's camera for no reason at 1:48 a.m. Once again, Nicole wanted an eyewitness to see her leaving Chris's house at 12:47 p.m. And you can tell in this video clip that Nicole now wonders if any other neighbors had cameras too. Just look at her. She's worried sick that their cameras might have saw that Nicole never pulled into the driveway at 1:48 a.m. and that Shannon never got out of Nicole's car.
Do these neighbors have cameras?
She worried that someone's camera saw her take the luggage into Chris's house before 12:47 p.m. She worried that the camera might have caught the woman who drove Nicole to Chris's house. And she's worried that the camera might have saw that Nick never stood on her car to look in the garage window. One thing seems clear. Nicole being this nervous certainly is not because she's wondering if any camera saw who took Shannon from the house, because Nate's security camera video proves Shannon never entered the house at 1:48 a.m., and Nicole already knows this. And isn't it interesting that the only Life 360 map that Nicole didn't provide to the police was the map for the time period 4:33 p.m. to 4:42 p.m. after she left her secret hidey hole at 4:33 p.m. Why didn't you provide it, Nicole? Nicole drove straight past all 3 cop cars when she left her hidey hole at 4:33 p.m., and before the 3 cops enter Chris's house to conduct the search, Officer Bake's cop car turned signal light was clearly not on. Yet, after coming out of Chris's house during the search, Bake's cop car turn signal light is now on.
Your turn signal's on. It's been on. I may have to turn in a hurry.
So who opened Bake's cop car door and turned on his signal light? That's right, the same person who opened Baumhover's cop car door. Nick. And there is no dispute that it was Nick who opened Baumhover's cop car door. Here you see Nick leaving the porch in the bottom right of the door side light window. And now Madison is alone on the porch for a total of 32 seconds. Madison is rubbing up against the door making noise, which is why Chris turns around and looks at the door. Then, after opening Baumhover's cop car door, you see Nick, in the bottom right of the side light window, returning to the porch at 3:40 and 30 seconds p.m. on Coonrod's chest camera. Then you clearly see Nick appear in the left side light window. Nick bends down and picks up Madison. When the cops leave through the front door, Nick is carrying Madison in his arms. Nick had to rush back to the porch from Baumhover's cop car because he heard Nate's screen door slam and/or saw Nate as Nate was coming back over to Chris's house. This is the actual plane that Shannon flew home to Denver on from Phoenix. A 2017 Boeing 737-800 fixed-wing twin-engine, 189-seat jet. The plane had wheels down at Denver International Airport at 12:53 a.m. It had a 5-minute taxi-in and reached the boarding gate at 12:58 a.m. Nicole's Live 360 map proves her phone connected to the internet at 12:47 a.m. while she was still on the plane, before it landed at 12:53 a.m. And the Discovery proves Shannon's phone connected to the internet at 12:50 a.m. while she was also still on the plane before it landed. Now, after Shannon and Nicole left the Denver airport, Nicole deliberately shut off her phone and Live 360 map system at 1:23 a.m. Nicole only turned it back on 5 minutes later at 1:28 a.m. and when the car was near I-76. 2 minutes after Nicole shuts her phone off at 1:23 a.m., Shannon allegedly sent a text at 1:25 a.m. saying, "Landed." Then Shannon shuts her phone off. Now, remember, the doorbell video that shows Shannon's phone is still on at 1:48 a.m. is not from August 13th. So is it believable that Nicole and Shannon would both shut their phones off at almost the very same time while in Nicole's car? Is it believable Shannon would wait until 1:25 a.m. while riding in Nicole's car to send the text saying landed, when Shannon had 5 whole minutes to send that one-worded text from the time the plane's wheels landed on the runway at 12:53 a.m. until the time that the plane reached the boarding gate at 12:58 a.m.? Especially when the Discovery proves that Shannon's phone was turned on and connected to the internet while she was on the plane at 12:50 a.m., and when you must remain seated on the plane until it's time to deplane. So clearly, Shannon had lots of time to send a one-worded text during this 5-minute period on the plane. And why would Shannon send that landed text to Nicole too, when Shannon was with Nicole, and Nicole is allegedly sitting right beside Shannon in the car? It makes no sense, party people, and it makes no sense because Shannon wasn't the person who sent the landed text from Shannon's phone. Someone else had Shannon's phone, and someone else sent that staged fake text. It's obvious. 3 minutes after Shannon allegedly sent that text and turned her phone off, Nicole turns her phone on while driving 87 miles per hour in the dark. Is this believable to you? So did something happen to Shannon during this 5-minute period between 1:23 a.m. and 1:28 a.m. when Nicole deliberately shut her phone off, then turned it back on? Did someone else send a staged fake message from Shannon's phone at 1:25 a.m. saying, "Landed"? Was Shannon strangled in the car from behind? Or was she taken out of Nicole's car by force and put in another vehicle and taken to a safe house? If 6323 Steeple Rock was the safe house that the kids and Shannon were taken to, well, Chris only had to walk, without being seen, past 4 houses on the right-hand side of Steeple Rock, before diagonally crossing the street to get the kids there at 11:25 p.m. Sunday night, when Nate's camera was triggered after Chris got off the phone with Kessinger at 11:19 p.m. and after sending Shannon a text at 11:21 p.m. It was also dark out at 11:25 p.m., which would help Chris be sight unseen, and Steeple Rock has no streetlights. And as the police door-to-door searches prove, none of these 4 houses on the right-hand side of Steeple Rock had security or doorbell camera systems. Now, Chris pointed toward Steeple Rock Drive when Chris told Coonrod about a friend of Shannon's named Christian, and Christian lived at 6323 Steeple Rock.
Kristen lives down that way.
And on 4 different occasions during the police search, Chris tells the returning 3 cops that he's checked in with all of Shannon's friends, and none of them had heard from Shannon.
Does she have any friends around here?
Just friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got friends in Frederick, Erie, Aurora, that part of Erie, Broomfield, Parker.
Have you tried to contact any of them?
Oh yeah, we've exhausted every option. The last thing I'm going to do is hospitals. Hotels. There's so many, but...
And no one's heard from her today?
You have no idea where she would go?
All the friends that I know.
You contacted them?
If there's other... That's the only ones that I know of. There could be people that I don't know.
Does she have any other friends in this neighborhood?
No, we haven't talked to many people around here, honestly.
It's mostly in Erie and Broomfield?
Erie, Broomfield, Frederick.
Where at in Frederick, do you know?
So we had, they just lived up here in Frederick Way. They actually just moved down to Thornton, Nick and Amanda Thayer.
Okay.
Nikki, she lives up, the one that was here, she lives in Frederick.
The one that dropped her off?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, she lives over there building that new stoplight, that bridge over there.
Right. Okay. And you have no idea of which friend? So all your friends pretty much have kids the same age?
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to...
It's really hard. I've exhausted every option I know of as far as friends goes. Like, Nikki knew more of them because she's a woman. And that's about as far as we could go, as far as all the friends that we could think of going for walks or anything.
And you've talked to all the friends you guys have around the area?
However, Chris's phone records prove that Chris never did call or contact Christian that day before telling the 3 cops that he checked in with all of Shannon's friends. So was Shannon taken to a safe house on Steeple Rock instead of being taken home? Maybe, but there is simply no way Nicole, while driving 87 miles per hour in the dark, would fiddle around to needlessly turn on her phone and Life 360 map system. it's beyond clear that if Nicole didn't make a phone call or send a text after turning her phone back on, it proves that Nicole only turned her phone and Life 360 map back on to generate a timeline alibi. Nicole told Val Hover that her Life 360 system was an app on her phone, proving that she turned on her phone at 1:28 a.m. and she did not turn on the Life 360 map system on her car Bluetooth. Now, party people, hold your amen, because there's more. During Nick's police interview, Nicole and Nick Schur were worried that the autopsy was going to disclose Shannon's true time of death. And amazingly, Nick claims he did a lot of research on autopsies. Think about that. Why would a 16-year-old kid who isn't going to school to be a coroner or a doctor be studying what autopsies can reveal? Why were Nick and Nicole so worried about Shannon's time of death when Chris already admitted to killing Shannon himself? Could it be because they knew Chris didn't actually kill Shannon himself, so someone else did? If the autopsy proved Shannon was killed between 1:23 a.m. and 1:48 a.m., it would prove Nicole was involved, because Shannon allegedly never got home until 1:48 a.m. And since Nicole was driving the car, it would prove Nicole had helped killing Shannon. Or since Chris was under police surveillance since Tuesday morning, if the autopsy proved Shannon was only killed on Tuesday, it would prove that Chris did not actually do the killing. And since Shannon never got out of Nicole's car at 1:48 a.m., it would prove that Nicole was directly responsible for Shannon's disappearance, and, more importantly, her murder. Now let's have a listen to what Dr. Nick has to say.
There definitely is going to be a trial and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll all have to testify.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I don't see any way out of it.
And he is really trying to say that Shanann killed the girl?
That's his story.
So, I mean, autopsies will show that, won't that? Like timeline of when...
I can't speak to anything about the autopsy at all.
Well, no, I know, but that should...
Autopsies don't necessarily give you a timeline.
Do they
give you cause and manner, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure, kid, you got over there.
Something I've done a lot of research on.
And isn't it interesting that 16-year-old Dr. Nick, who doesn't work for Anadarko, knows exactly how long it takes to drive from Chris's house to Survey 319, where both Shannon and the kids were found dead.
So it took Chris about 2 hours and a half to get there.
From the first call?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it takes him about 30, 45 minutes from his work to get there.
Okay.
Let's recap, party people. We have 5 critical, missing, and unaccounted for minutes for Nicole between 1:23 a.m. and 1:28 a.m. So what happened? You heard the DA clearly say that it takes up to 4 minutes to strangle someone, and Nicole has 5 missing unaccounted for minutes. Is this just a coincidence? I now call upon DA Rourke to refresh your memory. The floor is all yours, Mr. Rourke.
We know that our experts will tell us that it takes 2 to 4 minutes to strangle someone to death manually with their own hands.
You just heard it from the horse's mouth, party people. Now, Nicole documented her personal timeline very carefully, and she deliberately went out of her way to drive in front of Nate's camera several times to ensure that she would be seen. So why are there 5 unaccounted for minutes in her carefully and deliberately documented alibi timeline? Only Nicole and Chris repeatedly lay out a timeline alibi in this case early on. Nicole documents her personal timeline with Life 360 maps from Sunday night in Phoenix until Wednesday morning at work in Boulder. So why did the 5 missing minutes only happen when Shannon was in the car? Was Shannon strangled from behind during this 5-minute missing period of documented time, while Shannon was sitting in the front passenger seat of Nicole's tight compact car? Is this why there are no defensive wounds on Shannon's body? Was someone else in the car with Nicole and Shannon? Is this why Nicole said in a 2:01 a.m. text, "We are home"? Since Nicole already dropped Shannon off at 1:48 a.m., who are the "we" that Nicole spoke of? Since Nicole claimed she dropped Shannon off at home at 1:48 a.m., and since Nicole did not get home to her own house until 2:10 a.m., why hasn't Nicole been required to explain what location she was at when she sent the 2:01 a.m. text saying "we are home," when, in reality, Nicole was still 9 minutes away from her own house when she sent the 2:01 a.m. text? Why has Nicole never had to prove that she parked her car at the airport while in Arizona? Is it believable that she would pay expensive airport weekend parking fees when she only lived a few minutes away from the airport? Or did Nick drive to the airport to pick Shannon and Nicole up? If so, what seat was Nick sitting in when they were driving Shannon home, since Nicole admits that she was in the driver's seat driving the car? Why haven't these simple, very important questions been asked by the Frederick Police, by the CBI, or by the FBI? So, party people, wouldn't you like to know the answers to these simple questions? You know, as Nicole oddly said, to put an end to the conspiracy theory that Nicole was not involved in this horrific, cold-blooded, triple murder crime.
And I know that this is probably irrelevant and it isn't really important, but what about the people on the conspiracy theories and all of that?
Yeah, I can tell you I've got thousands of those like what people think, how it happened, how it went all down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
How involved I was or wasn't involved.
I've never heard of a conspiracy theory about someone not being involved in a case before, but whatever. Now, with all her shady behavior and all of the outright lies that she told, how in the world could the jackass DA, who also allowed Chris to enter into a 100% illegal and unenforceable plea agreement, say with a straight face that Nicole was instrumental in helping solve this case?
I think she was absolutely instrumental. The fact that she made phone calls to the Frederick Police Department within several hours of this act and this disappearance, I think only benefited law enforcement. Being able to have law enforcement respond to that house before the defendant came back and was able to do any other cleanup or getting rid of evidence, I think was crucial to this investigation. And so she's obviously here, and I want to extend our thanks to you for that very timely response, and thank you for all you've done.
The following Nicole comment might be the only true statement Nicole actually made in this entire case.
I wanted people to know that I am not a hero.
So, party people, all of these compelling revelations are Smithsonian level, which proves that when it comes to this case, the planets truly do only revolve around the king of the case's head. Anyway, it's now your turn to explain in the comments section how in the fuck Nick and Nicole got away with their involvement in this case, and I'll see you in my next worldwide award-winning video.